What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Swan Hockey Live. I am your host, Eric Swanek, and tonight we are joined by Madison Capitols of the USHL Director Scouting, Justin Friedman, and we are also joined by Andrew Serpico, the Assistant Director of United States Scouting for Neutral Zone. What's up, guys?
Morning.
Not much. Another week.
Good morning. Good morrow.
Another week in paradise, right?
Yeah, it's almost coming to an end. We're almost at the end of the season. Crazy, flew by. No
Hockey
shortage
season, doesn't it?
News or entertainment, or craziness this season, that's for sure. But another one's almost done. Nuts. But if you're new here, welcome. Feel free to join the conversation, ask your questions. No such thing as a stupid question. We want to hear from you. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Throw it in the comments. If you're watching on Instagram, we will not be able to see your comments. If you want to interact with the show, please head over to YouTube, Facebook, or the live podcast channel of the Swan Hockey Discord server. We're going to get into some scouting stuff tonight. We got Justin here, obviously, from the USHL, complimented by Andrew from Neutral Zone, and we're going to kind of get into a couple different dynamics, I guess, of scouting. Justin, where do you want to start? Why don't you tell everybody, for those that may not be familiar with Madison or the USHL, for anybody that's new here to junior hockey or a younger player or parent of a younger player, why don't you give the quick rundown of the USHL, what Madison has to offer, and then we'll get into some of the scouting.
Yeah, so I think everybody knows, obviously, it seems to be, the elite league in the U.S. relative to junior hockey. And it's if anybody watches games, takes a look at the standings right now, it's pretty darn tight in the sense that our team can finish anywhere from first place. We're 1 point behind Dubuque with I think 2 games in hand, and we could finish anywhere from first to fourth. And first and second are a big deal because it means you don't have to play the first round, and you get home ice in the second round. Whereas if you finish third, fourth, you do get home ice, but you got to play 3 games first, and then you got to work your way on, and you're meeting a team that's rested and fresh. So, the rest of the season, obviously, on the hockey side of it for us is extremely important. And, we've got a tough weekend up ahead, 3 games in Muskegon, and then we're going to host Lincoln twice next week. And then I believe we end with Green Bay and Dubuque. So it's not an easy task. And, we've got to try and hold serve and try, like I said, if we control our own fate, though, that's the best part. So we just have to play well. And, obviously this is kind of wraps up, and then playoffs start mid-April. So it doesn't stop.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people. People are like, oh, summer must be the off season, right? Like, do you do anything? I'm like, yeah, like this never stops. It just changes. Like it's summertime, I guess, is a nice change of pace a little bit because you're kind of doing something a little bit different. It's a little, but never stops, just changes. That's what I always tell people. And, that's nice. You guys are controlling your own destiny. It's nice that you don't have to sit there with fingers crossed, hoping somebody else loses and everything. Like I always say to the players, performance is king. It's the same thing on the team, team end, right? You make life easy for yourself when you're performing and you're dominating.
But yeah, like I said, we're a point behind Dubuque. Muskegon has the same amount of points as us, and I think Youngstown's 3 behind us. So, that's 4 points that covers first to fourth.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As 4 teams, I think we're locked into first through fourth, and it'll just be a matter of whether it's Green Bay or Cedar Rapids, 5th and 6th. But up top, it's going to play itself out here over the next 3 weeks. And fun part is we'll get to see a little bit of it next week because Nationals, obviously, as most people know, of a 15 or 16-year-old kid, or Nationals are coming up to Madison, and we're hosting Lincoln the same weekend. So these guys will get a chance to really come out, potentially, compete hard all week, and hopefully attend 1 or 2 of the games over the course of the weekend at home for us.
Yeah, no,
lucky you guys,
that's awesome. What do you say, Andrew?
I said, lucky you guys. That's big stuff.
Yeah, except for the 8 a.m. team practices coming up.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Fun. So they'll be long days, but fortunately, the national schedule. I attended 15s last year in Fargo, and schedule's pretty reasonable. The games don't start till 10 o'clock, and the last game's at 5 o'clock. So you're not there for 15 hours a day.
Yeah, just
first nationals I went to was U18s in St. Louis like 5 years ago, and they just threw me into it. And the first game started at 8 a.m. and I was there 11 o'clock at night.
Wow, 8 a.m. to 11 at night.
The last game was just overtime, double overtime. Like it just
that's usually how it goes.
It was a brutal day. But the 18s are going. I think it's like it was 320s. So 16s are a little lower. 15s are great. 13s and 14s are even better time wise. It's magical. Pretty quick at the rink.
Yeah, they basically made the 18 games full, basically junior games at this point. I think.
Yeah,
the 320s, ice cuts after each one. Whereas I think for 16, 15, they'll do the usual 17s with one ice cut.
Yeah, so it's just the 18s become long games, throwing a couple overtimes, and yeah,
Especially with the two ice cuts, that drags it out too.
It never fails. Yeah, 2 ice cuts, and then it never fails. The last game goes to overtime.
Yeah, no, that's usually how it goes. I mean, you know, and why don't you talk a little bit about that, Justin? It's like obviously like the Nationals is a big, you know, event for you, you know, scouting and everything. Like I'm assuming most of the guys you probably have information on already. This is kind of a I guess like a last look before the draft and everything, seeing how guys ultimately develop throughout the season, who rises to the occasion with the, on the big stage, the big games, who can close out, win the big games, that kind of stuff. Like, why don't you talk a little bit about that?
What I would say is it's ultimately just kind of a culmination of everything you've done and all the work you put in this year. It's, obviously you won't see everybody. You only see 16 teams at each level, other than the 11s, which I know which you're doing, Andrew, and that's only 12 teams because there's no at-larges. But for us, it's really neat to have the opportunity to host it. Last year Fargo hosted it. We were up there, but they only hosted 15s. I guess last year 16s and 18s were together. This year they've put the 16s with the 15s, and they've spread the 18s out. So one of our scouts, Gary Biggs, will be out in Pittsburgh watching the 18s. And, the fortunate part for us about having 16s and 15s up there is we get to work out of our own office. The 15s will be up at Cap Ice. The 16s will be at Verona Ice Arena, which is a 10 to 15 minute drive away.
Yeah.
So we'll have at least 1 or 2 guys down at Verona the whole week. And obviously, we'll practice during the week and we'll get going. And it's really, what's really helpful about it is the fact that it's in our building. It gives our coaches a chance to see these kids, because obviously during the year when your coaches are tied up with your team, Andy Brandt, who's our head coach, he's also our GM, so he doesn't really get a chance to get out and see a lot of these kids. Same thing with our other guys, and Dom Zombo and Tom Gilbert. They're in the building. They don't have to leave anywhere. They literally can come in. We get on the ice in the morning. They get off the ice, and it's everything's right in front of us for the next 6 to 7 hours each day. Just take a little gander upstairs and start watching.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's a good recruiting tool too, like that it's in your building, right? Because then people can see, what you guys have to offer, what the setup looks like and everything. So it's nice for people to like actually see, it's got to give a leg up on, on the recruiting. If you find yourself in a recruiting battle with somebody else, for a free agent or whatnot, or even maybe a player that you draft that also gets drafted major, junior, and you're trying to, get them to come to you. So that's nice. That's always nice too for the players to be able to, see the building, and obviously great for the players too.
I know this is a unique year having Nationals in your own barn, but like in years past, do you typically only do 15s and 16s? Do you do 14s, or how do you guys normally operate?
So obviously this is our second draft as a group. This past year we went to 15s in Fargo. That was just a flight out to Minneapolis and a drive up to Fargo. 16s and 18s out in Vegas. Like it's tough to.
I like the laugh there. You're like, yeah, we went out to Fargo, and then it was in Vegas.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think we have enough knowledge between, we've got 6 to 8 guys on our staff that get out and watch these kids. So I think we have enough knowledge where, if worse comes to worse and, we're not able to get out there, we do have USA Hockey TV to watch, and, we're in tune enough where we don't, yes, I do think it's very important to see kids in person, but at the same time, you've been seeing them in person all year. Realistically, as long as you get that last kind of viewing point and you're able to watch it in some capacity, it can kind of put you in a position where you feel comfortable with what you've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know you guys brought on Gary Biggs.
Yep. Gary's been working with us for about a year now.
Oh, right. Yeah. I didn't even know that. But Why don't you guys talk a little bit about I'll kind of leave it to you guys. Like, why don't you guys talk a little bit about the differences in approach, like what you're looking for at nationals, Justin versus Andrew, what you're looking for at nationals, right? So like the team point of view versus, the neutral zone. For people at home, like Andrew, would you say it's fair to say that neutral zone is almost like a central scouting for just junior and youth hockey in general, not specific to a certain league, but just in general?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Justin and I are in way different boats where he's probably looking for specific types of players. Like we're looking at every player we possibly can to get kind of a broad scope, where he's going to have a more narrower approach on what his team needs are, what they're looking for. So I think that's the major difference. What I'm looking for is kind of who rises to the occasion, right? This is a big moment. We've seen a lot of these kids play all year. Like Justin said, we're seeing them in person, seeing them online. So it's kind of just looking for who's going to step up and who performs at big times. You can have your guys that you've seen all year that I've graded out with A's every single time I see them, and they could just come out and it's just, moment could be too big, competition could be too much, whatever the change would be, they may not perform. And then you see a third line kid who's just, maybe he's been C's or not even in reports, and this kid just shows up, he's blocking every shot, he's just stepping up, making big things happen. So we're kind of, looking for different things and just like I said, seeing who's going to step up, who's going to make big plays, and kind of who's doing what in certain situations.
Yeah, I think there's a point to that, but I think, Eric, also along the lines of some of the stuff that Andrew said, it's also what we're looking for. I know that, from our conversations with as a staff, I think we put a lot of value in kids who perform on the biggest stage, guys who go to national camp and, put the puck in the net and continually put up points every game, guys who are able to do the same thing at nationals, guys who are at least if you're looking for a guy who can produce and score, you're looking for guys who put up a point per game at nationals, at national camp, at the big moments, like you said, guys who aren't going to get rattled when you're down a goal with a minute and a half left in the Clark Cup playoffs, and you got to figure out a way to get a goal. You feel comfortable that this is the guy that you put him on the ice. He's going to go out there and he's going to give you a chance to score a goal. You look at guys who, like Andrew said, rise to the occasion, guys who perform at their highest level on the biggest stage, in games where there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, to make sure that the guys you're looking at are guys who have no fear of having the puck on their stick.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's an important lesson for people, like, because I've always been a big proponent, like, especially at the junior level, like, you want to play for winning teams. And, for everybody at home, like, I think you're starting to see why, like, because you want to, like, obviously that's where the attention is, right, on the top teams, from a scouting standpoint. And then also, right, you want to get that big game experience. You want to learn how to handle it, how to go deep into the playoffs, how to play in those big games, how to maintain composure in the big games, maintain consistency in the big games. And then also, like, you can go into development with it, right? Like where you see somebody, like when a team's winning and they're, having success in the standings, usually the team's a well-oiled machine. Everyone's, everyone's getting lots of puck touches. They're playing all three zones, or, everything's going well, versus a team that's, not winning, is losing every night, spending, 3/4 of the time trying to chip the puck off the glass out of their own zone to go for a change, right? There's not really much development in that. So like, that's why, just kind of on a side note here, I think it's very important when you guys are looking at different teams this upcoming, this off season and everything, you want to play for a winner. Like you really do. Very rarely do you see a team that's got, great coaches, great players, great front office, great ownership, great support from that ownership, and just for some reason they're in last place. It doesn't usually happen. If things are bad on the ice, usually, a lot of times things are bad off the ice, everywhere in the organization. So I think that's important to, when you guys are out there looking for teams this summer and this off season and making decisions, you want to try to go with a winning program. Obviously you got to play when you're there, right? Being in the winning program and being scratched or being on the fourth line might not do you, as much as, being somewhere else playing. So, you definitely got to play. I always tell people you want to go to the highest level you possibly can, where you're going to, be an impact player, where you're going to, get a regular shift and have success with those, with those shifts. And you want to do it on a winning team.
Well, Eric, there's also obviously, I also look at different situations that kids are going to run into at nationals too. Number one, obviously the first game is that your most important game that you play there. You're starting off on a good note. So you kind of look at guys who are prepared and, listen, take a walk around the rink, kind of see how guys prepare, and see if there's guys that are doing it the right way. Obviously, like I said, we're going to be there all day. We're going to be there to start with practice, so we'll have the opportunity kind of to see right from the giddy up how guys are going, and you also get a chance to see situations where a team might be 0-2 and eliminated, and see how those kids react. Do they play their third game and just lackadaisical? They don't really, do they care, or does it matter to them because they don't have the opportunity to advance anymore, or do they bring it, whether it's the first day of the Nationals and first game of the day or first game of the weekend, or do they not do that? And if they bring it, do they bring it even though they're 0-2 and the team's eliminated and they haven't performed very well there? You also look to kind of see both ends of the spectrum there, because there will obviously be teams that will go undefeated through that first portion round, and there will be teams that will be 0-2 going in the last day.
Sure. Yeah. So like a big takeaway, guys, at home is consistency, right? Like these guys want consistency.
I can't echo what Justin said more enough. Where like watching, I love on day 3 when you have two teams that haven't won a game that are playing each other, like they're not advancing. I love watching those games to see how those kids react in those situations. Because you want to see the big kids or the kids jump up in big moments, but also the moments where you have really nothing to play for. Are you still going to play and show up? Those are important times. And on the same thing, that when an undefeated team's playing a team that's already eliminated, like is the players on the undefeated team, like, are you going to show up, or are you just going to take the night off and look about tomorrow? Also, like, everyone's different. Like Justin said, you take a walk around the rink, you kind of see the players and how they're preparing. And then you can, if it translates on the ice, if they're kind of just goofing off and not doing the right things, and then you see on the ice how that translates, like that's also something these kids have to consider and be mindful of.
Well, the other thing too, Eric, I think you look at is obviously every year Nationals kind of rotates to a different spot, and for us, you kind of see how these kids, you see how everybody prepares on the whole, because, this year, at least, like neither of the Madison 15 or 16 team made it. So every team's coming in, they're driving, flying, whatever it is, everyone's staying in a hotel. Nobody's sleeping in their own beds at night. So you get a sense of kind of who can handle themselves when they're on the, when they're in a situation like this on the road, just like in junior hockey, when you get the bus, our guys are going to get on the bus this week. They're going to bus out to Muskegon, and they're going to play 3 games in 3 days in Muskegon. So you get a sense of, who comes in, performs at this level, and, who's capable of doing it at the next level too. If do you show up and you don't perform at Nationals because you had to travel and you had to get on a plane and you weren't sleeping in your own bed? Like, how much does that affect you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And even like, yeah. And it's funny that you bring that up, because I'm sure you've seen it too, Justin, but like, so for instance, like summer tournaments, right? Like we've both done, pre-draft junior chowder cup. And it's funny. One of my coaches pointed it out last year, and we're kind of laughing about it, because it was at junior chowder cup, and he's like, hey, you notice a difference with, right off the bat? I'm like, what? He's like, pre-draft, like for those at home, which is a junior tournament, he's like, pre-draft, everybody was here the night before. He's like, junior chowder cup, he's like, everybody drove here like today, like, the day of the game, like, and again, just, junior versus, the youth. Yeah, like, just little things like that, sometimes, but yeah, like how guys prepare, to your point, and, and regardless of what time we're traveling, like learning how to travel and get good meals in and get rest, and, be able to get up and get going once you get to where you're going to be, because, again, junior hockey, like you're expected to, like Justin said, you're expected to get on the bus, you're expected to get off the bus, you're expected to go play, and you're expected to go play well, right? Like nobody cares about anything else. It's just, play well. And for those at home that might not know, the Madison Capitols, they don't, it's a free league. The players are not paying to play, right? The players are expected to offer something else, and it's not money, it's performance, right? They're expected to play and play well.
Yeah.
Justin, do you guys have a home game during Nationals?
We do. We're hosting Lincoln on Friday and Saturday night. 7:30 start, I think, Friday, and then 7:00 on Saturday. I think probably the later start Friday is just to give them, an extra boost, just to make sure they get the games in and have enough time to turn everything around. Because I know usually the way it works between the North American League and like the USHL is, there needs to be a certain time span between the last the last thing on the ice and the game, just to make sure the ice is properly taken care of and ready to go as well.
Yeah. Hey, did they start introducing refs in the USHL?
That was just, I think, a special night that the Steel had. They had like a referee night, something. So it's not.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't like a big thing. It was it was kind of a one night thing that Chicago did, I believe.
Oh yeah, I saw a video of it. I was like, oh, what is this? Yeah, they're introducing the refs like full blown like player intro.
So no, and I think, and hopefully these kids understand kind of, especially the teams that are still playing, understand the value of being able to go watch a game on Friday night and Saturday night and see exactly if this league is where you think you can get to, and see it in person. Unfortunately, you got two of the better teams in the league this year showing, facing off against each other. They've got the best record in the league right now, and we're giving chase.
So to that point, I mean, the reason why I asked that, I didn't know what exactly was happening. I know last year at 13s and 14s, so the NTDP played in Novi, and all the kids were at the game. I think it was like a Friday night or something. And Saturday morning, like everyone that was playing, there was an extra pep in those kids' steps. Like they were a little, most of them were a little hungrier. So it's great for the kids. It's
and
awesome.
last year, like Fargo, Fargo was away, but again, it's to the point of, for these kids, at least like the 15s and now 15s and 16s, like you're playing. Last year, your 15 nationals were in Fargo, which is a USHL city, so it's obviously within almost every team had a guy there. Obviously this year it's in Madison, it's a USHL city, so pretty much every team's going to have somebody there. And next year it's in Green Bay, so it's another USHL city. So obviously I don't want to hazard a guess as to whether they've kind of planned it out this way, but it's 3 years in a row now it's been in the city with a USHL team.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean,
obviously there's certain cities that probably aren't in a position to host something like this, in the league, just because they're not big enough or they don't have enough, ice capacity, and potentially don't have enough hotel capacity. But fortunately in Madison, where, our city is big enough where we can host it, and we're getting the opportunity to do it this year.
Yeah, that's awesome. And there's so much value to these kids being able, and the parents being able to go watch a game. Like I say that every year, like, hey, whatever league you're interested in, go watch a game in person, like mid-season. Watch a game in person mid-season, see what the league is really about mid-season, right? Not at main camps or anything. Like main camps are not accurate representations of the level of the league. Like go watch a game mid-season. And like, I highly recommend that to any player out there. I mean, don't break the bank to do it, but if you have the opportunity to watch a game in the USHL, the NA, wherever mid-season, and see what that league is really like, I think you guys are going to be very, very surprised when you see the level of play. And like USHL, I mean, it's like Justin said earlier, it's the best junior league in the United States. It's really something special, and I again highly recommend people going to watch a game. So I think that's awesome that these kids are gonna, and the families are gonna have the opportunity to do that at nationals and get that firsthand viewing experience of, okay, this is what this is about. Oh, Justin, you're frozen.
Oh, no. I was just, were you going to lead into another topic, or do you want us to come up with another one?
You want to switch topics, where do you want to go to?
No, I was going to, maybe we can kind of talk a little bit. Andrew, obviously you watching the 11s or the 2011s, which is U13 and U14, kind of talk, I guess maybe talk a little bit about your approach to watching that and where it differs from our approach to watching 15, 16s, 18s.
Well, first of all, the age gap, I know it's just a year or two, but the play is massive. Like the kid can be an absolute rock star one day and then just fall off a cliff the next day. Like the inconsistencies at these age are wild, but you're kind of looking for that middle point. I mean, at this age, so I remember last year when I was watching 13s, like the top kids beyond dominated. Like it wasn't even close. And there was kind of like a muddle in the middle of the rest of them. But like the top kids just put on an absolute clinic and looked like they shouldn't even been there. And then you had those other kids that kind of just, they try to carve out their own paths. you're looking for a little more deeper into what a player can be, rather than when you're seeing the 15-year-olds. Like, these kids are, you have a firm grasp of what they are, a firmer grasp, not a firm grasp. Everyone develops at different ages. But I feel like the 13s and 14-year-olds are a little trickier because of their development process that's still kind of in order. But I mean, it's tough. Every kid's different. Every kid is going to develop in their own path, their own way. But, like I said, the top kids absolutely dominated. And usually, I remember last year, besides Caesar, so it was 10s, besides Caesars, like Shattuck just picked apart all those top kids. And they're all playing 14s for Shattuck now. But, yeah, it's definitely interesting to see, because that was my first time watching 13-year-olds. Was last year. I've watched a lot more this year, but it's crazy to see how quick some of these kids develop and turn into something different than what I saw them a year ago. Like their trajectory from 12 to 13 and 13 to 14, like kind of will skyrocket and then, change a little bit after that.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of, as we've kind of begun, I've watched 15s the last 2 years, because obviously last year was the first year working with the Caps, and it was our phase 1 draft year. So we had to kind of have a good handle on that. And before, I'd just taken the job up in New Hampshire, and it just so happened that 15U Nationals happened to be in New Jersey. So it was pretty darn convenient. And 16s and 18s were in San Jose. So that was a pretty easy decision in terms of where to go.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You've now had, 16s and 18s out west 2 years in a row, San Jose, Vegas, whereas, you had 15 Nationals an hour and 15 minutes away. And last year was, just a flight to Minneapolis well, I will say it was a 3-hour, pretty boring drive through the middle of nowhere other than St. Cloud to get up there. But it is what it is.
What, that's not fun?
Yeah, it was fine. It was probably better than sitting on a plane for 6 hours going out to San Jose and Las Vegas back-to-back years.
San Jose sounds fun.
I was supposed to be in San Jose, and then that's when Ace was born, right at that time. So I couldn't go. I was fuming. Kid was being selfish.
You're supposed to go to San Jose?
I was supposed to go to San Jose, and I didn't get to go. And now 13s and 14s, they're going to be in Novi in Detroit every year, pretty much. So basically,
I remember
national
that.
program, kind of see what's going on.
Now that you say that, I remember that.
Yeah, which is great. It makes complete sense, but like, want to go somewhere cool every once in a while,
So that's their plan, is to do it in Michigan each and every year with 13s and 14s. Just keep it there.
I believe so, because that's what they did last year. That's what they did this year. It makes total sense, because that's what I don't know. That's just put them in one spot. Like I think that's a genius play, and then putting 15s in USHL territories is a great idea also.
No, definitely. Obviously, the only thing is there's probably only certain every city, as I kind of mentioned, probably isn't necessarily in a position to host it, just because you've got to have the capacity in terms of ice and rinks, and you got to have the capacity in terms of hotels to host it. And kind of the other thing too is you don't want to get into a situation where you go to one of these cities and the rinks are 35 minutes apart. The nice part about Fargo.
It's like hosting a Super Bowl, right? Like couldn't Nashville not host a Super Bowl or whatever, because they're like, hey, we can't have 100,000 people using the toilets at once or something. Like,
yeah, because of plumbing. Plumbing was the
right.
Thing.
Like it was something crazy.
But kind of going back to my point, like the year the 07s had U15s, it was up here in New Jersey and Wayne. I mean, they got 3 sheets there, so they're only doing only got for 15s. It was only 16 teams. It was 8 games a day. So doing it in a 3-sheet spot is easy, where you don't ever have to get in a car and drive anywhere else. Last year, Fargo, they had, games in the main USHL arena, and they had games on their practice sheet, just one spot to go to. And, this year, obviously, like the 15s will be at Cap Ice, where you got the 2 sheets, and 16s will be up and down in Verona, where they have 2 sheets as well. So it's, 10 to 15 minute ride between the 2, which isn't bad.
It's not bad.
You don't want to put it somewhere where you're driving 30, 40 minutes from rink to rink, and then becomes a disaster for coaches and the scouts that are there.
Yeah. We got a question here. It says, are USHL imports allowed? What is the key for imports to be considered? Do you look at imports differently?
I mean, so right now the rule is that you're allowed to have 6 imports. So
Are you guys bumping that up or not? Or is that not
I'm
been
not
decided?
I'm not sure yet. I haven't been privy to any of the official conversations on that. But yeah, so the import rule pretty much is 6 right now, and I think it varies with a lot of kids. It part of it depends on kind of what you're looking for and what you need, and part of it depends on if you have that within your current setup regarding your affiliate list and your team, and if not, and if you don't, a lot of it'll kind of go based on what we've seen from a scouting standpoint. So like, for example, kids that would be an 08, an 07, an 06, relative to imports. If after we get done with our phase 2 list, for example, if we don't really see that type of player from what we've seen in the US, then you're going to look at the import kind of, you're going to see what's maybe out there in Europe, see what's up in Canada. Then you'll start to, I think right now with the way the structure is going to work relative to the CHL stuff going down, I think you're going to start with your American kids, and then you'll start to build out after that. American kids, look at your Europeans then, and then you've got your Canadians, because obviously there's more incentive now for Canadians to stay at home.
Sure. And now a lot of teams, and let me know if you guys are in this boat, Justin, but like a lot of teams, and understandably so, would take this stance that, imports, and this is, true for USHL or any league really, that your imports typically have to be your best guys, right? So like that import forward, he's not only competing against the other forwards, he has to be more valuable than the import D, the import goalie, because you're only allowed 6 of them, right? So as an import, for you, essentially, it's a 6-man roster. It's not a 23-man roster, whatever the full roster is. It's a 6-man roster for you. You got to be. I'd say
with 6 imports, you'd want to put yourself in a position where you don't feel like you made a wrong decision on an import per se.
Right. So like they typically, you guys in Madison, like many others, want to see them be typically the better guys.
Yeah, if you like I said, if you're taking one of these, if you're taking these imports, you want to make sure that you're taking the right guys, and you don't want to put yourself in a position where you have to release or cut or trade an import, because you put that time in, and you want to make sure that those guys fit with what you brought them in for to begin with.
Yeah. And what's the latest with import goalies? What's the current rule right now with goalies? Because I know that's changed, time to time with different leagues and stuff. Our goalies, you can have an import goalie now, right?
You can. Yeah,
you could have an import goalie. Do they count as 1 or 2?
That's actually, I think if it's an import goalie who's non-American, I think it may count. No, I think it counts as 1. The only situation where it's a little different potentially is if your import goalie is a 20-year-old. I think that's where it's a little different.
Then it counts as 2.
Well, I think if you have, like, I know in the past it's usually been that you can have an extra. If your goalie was a 20-year-old, but he was an American, you could have an additional 20-year-old to him. Okay. Whereas if your goalie was an import who was a 20-year-old, you don't have that extra spot.
You don't. All right, so you don't get the extra 20-year-old spot.
Correct. Whereas if it was an American goalie, you do get that extra spot.
You do. Okay. And what is the current 20-year-olds in the USHL? Is it still 4?
I believe so. Yeah. And obviously there's there's discussions going on within every league regarding roster size, affiliate size, all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't know whether the league's announced anything. I haven't seen the league announce anything specific in terms of publicly, at least yet.
Yeah, honestly, I think the USHL should bump their imports like at least to 8, right? Because I think, and I've said this on previous episodes, I think it depends if you're what the league truly wants to do. If you want to grow American talent, then keep the imports where they are. But if you're from a hockey standpoint, if you want to put the highest level hockey you can on the ice, I think you got to bump the imports, because with everything going on with the CHL, there's been USHL guys that have obviously left the USHL to go to the CHL. I don't think the USHL can afford to not be able to get the guys from the CHL that want to come to the USHL or that get cut from the CHL, right? Like if a guy leaves a USHL team, goes to CHL, and then they cut a guy, like in my mind, the USHL has to get that guy. You can't not get that guy and then have him go to the OJ or something.
Well, I think, each team will, when something like that happens, I think each team will do their research and due diligence and see if that player's a fit. If he's a fit, great. If he's not a fit, then can't really. Then it's then it doesn't necessarily help the team if he's not a fit.
Right, but let's say there was 10 fits. It'd be nice if if a USHL team can get all 10 that they think is a fit, right? I think in terms of, if you have a good, if you have a good amount of CHL players cut that are Canadian, I think the USHL needs to find a way to get those guys in. Like I said, just clearly from a level of play standpoint. That's been my opinion kind of ever since the CHL and NCAA announced this. What do you think, Serps? Is he frozen? He might be frozen.
Well, hopefully not.
I don't know. Yeah, I think he's frozen. He doesn't look like he's frozen, but he is frozen. I don't know. Unless he's messing with us.
Oh, there you go.
He's back.
I haven't heard the last probably minute. You guys have had black screens and cutting in and out. So
we were just talking about the NCDC and all that stuff.
Well, I'm sorry, I can't.
No, we were talking about.
I was gonna. Oh yeah, NCDC Great League. They got that one guy with the thing in the playoffs, and they're just getting pucks deep, banging bodies, keeping it simple.
Yeah.
No, I haven't heard the last 2 minutes. I apologize.
Yeah, well, Eric was talking about kind of what about guys getting cut from the CHL and kind of making sure they end up here. And I told him, certain situations, yes, but certain situations that guy may not be a fit for what you're looking for either.
Yeah, I was talking about the USHL bumping the imports to be able to get more high-end Canadians in that might get cut from the CHL when USHL players leave to go to the CHL.
Yeah, but then you might. I don't know. It's a tricky situation, right? Because those guys might not be top end guys on certain USHL teams.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying if they are.
I'm
saying if the USHL team, right now, they could have 8 imports, right? If they've identified imports 9 and 10 and be like, man, it'd be great to have these guys. I think just the state that hockey's in today, I think they got to be able to find a way to get those guys, right? In terms of putting the highest level team on the ice, right? If the motto is to grow American talent, then no, keep it where it is.
I think you just got to pick the identity and go with the identity. You're right. If the goal's the best American talented players, then that's the way you go. I mean, it's
well, and Eric, the other thing you got to look at too is some teams may want to go a little younger, and if that's the case, that 20-year-old or 19 or 20-year-old coming from Canada isn't really of any value to that to a team potentially if they're going younger as well, or if just depending on what their philosophy is.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. What do you guys think of Penticton going to the BCHL and then Chilliwack going? So Penticton's going to BCHL next year, next season, this upcoming season, and Chilliwack's going the year after that. I think that's I don't know. It seems like the BCHL is just getting speed bagged ever since this new rule came out with the NCAA.
You mean that Penticton and Chilliwack are going to the WHL?
Yes.
Yeah, isn't that what I said or no?
No, you said they were BCHL.
Oh, they're leaving the BCHL.
I was I'm pretty sure they were in there.
We were just making sure you weren't frozen again. I mean, you're frozen. We're just making sure.
I get it.
Yeah. Go on to WHL, which is.
I don't know how the BCHL is really going to survive. That's.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's a tough situation to be in,
Because I always thought they were, the BCHL in my mind was always half a click below the USHL, but above the NA. Now I don't and I said it last week on, one of the episodes last week. I mean, I would put the NA over to BCHL now, just in terms of overall well-rounded.
I would argue it's just different style and different leagues and different kind of philosophy. I think, you see obviously the BCHLs, got a lot of kids who kind of feel like they're high skill guys who they really want to put more time in the offensive zone. And I think, the North American League, obviously, sometimes you may not have some of the skilled guys that you have in the BC, but I think it's a very structured league. And I think the North American League does a good job of preparing kids for college hockey.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. I think, if I'm a college scout, if I'm looking for the best talented forward I could find, typically I was going to the BCHL, between the BC and the NA. If I was looking for a goalie, I was going to the NA. If I'm looking for a 200-foot guy, I'm probably going to the NA. So I think, very different styles, but I wonder, again, like I just feel like so much is going to change for that league now, because it's just I don't know. Like I've said it from day one. I think with all the NCAA stuff, I think the BCHL is the big loser in all this, because what reason is there for a kid to play in the BC over the dub if the kid could play in the dub, right? It's the same territory, right? Like it's the same geographic area. So you're not going to have any kids that are like, oh, I want to stay in the West. Well, the Western League's in the West.
I think it'll also
didn't they go outlaw like last year or 2 years ago?
Yeah, and that's what makes it even worse, is that the dub teams don't even have to trade to get them. They just take them.
Well, I think some of it will kind of depend too on what the college approach is too. Obviously, there's certain schools in the past that, that have geared their kids toward the BCHL. There's certain colleges that have wanted their kids to go that route, and I think once you start to see how this plays out over the next year or two, that may change. Yeah. Colleges may not want their kids to go that route anymore, and they may direct them in two or three other ways too.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I mean, obviously the kid's got to play too, right? It's like if you're going to be a scratch on a Western League team or a, guy top 6 in the BC, like obviously, maybe you're a better fit for the BC at the moment. I mean, like, why don't you guys talk a little bit about that? Like in terms of like Justin, like, how many, like, talk about like just the minutes that guys are getting that are high on your list, right now for Madison. Like what, like why don't, like without naming names and stuff, like why don't you describe what your list looks like in terms of like the qualities that the players possess, right? It's like
our current guys or guys that we're looking at.
What do you say? Our
current guys or guys that we're looking at?
Let's say guys that you're looking at, like without giving any specific information away, like what, like, why don't you like run through like some of the qualities? Like, I imagine that a lot of the guys are getting big minutes, or guys that have worked their way onto special teams.
I think there's kind of 3 things that I look for when I watch kids. I mean, especially at the, for the 15s, and I have Gary and a bunch of guys that work with us. A couple of those guys have taken on some of the burden with phase 2 to kind of leave me an opportunity to watch mostly 15s and get a little bit into the 14s, because those guys are next. I kind of look for 3 things when we're looking at these guys. I think number 1 is, can you skate? Because if you can't skate, you can't play at the next level. Do you have a brain, and can you think the game? If your coaches always have to tell you where to be and shit like that, it's gonna, that's not really gonna be the most enjoyable opportunity for your coaching staff to be, so you have to at least know how to play the game and know where to be. And third is, can you make a play? I don't think we're looking for guys who are just smacking pucks off the glass and smacking pucks off the boards and looking to get rid of it. When you get the puck, can you make a good play? Those are kind of the 3 target points we look first. And then obviously, we break it down as much as we can once we kind of determine, player A can do at least 1 or 2 of those, and then obviously the guys that can do all 3 of those are the guys that shoot up on your list a little bit.
Just how Gil made a living going off the glass and out. The guy made it to the show in many years. No, don't be telling me those guys aren't valuable. Got to use the glass. Different style of hockey these days, but
yeah, well, yeah, and when you do use the glass, you got to use the glass. There's nothing worse than the kid that it's time to use the glass, and I don't know, right in the shin pads, right up the middle, and in the back of the net, like.
Yeah,
so like that's the thing. Like something like like when it's time to use the glass, like shit, use the glass.
Yeah,
like
which
is what do you guys think of the no icing on the power play rule or on the penalty kill rule?
As a previous penalty killer in my life, I hate every
like
second
that's so
of it.
stupid to me.
I get it.
I mean,
I don't really get it. Like,
I know change the rules. I guess they're taking that. They're taking it out. They're taking automatic out. I think, frankly, the midget rules should reflect as close as humanly possible to junior rules. Because if you're trying to prepare kids to play in the United States Hockey League or the North American League when they're 15, 16, 18, like, why aren't you getting used to the rules?
Yeah.
I don't know whether they could institute no change on icing at midgets, because I don't know what that does in terms of, maybe a kid, maybe they don't allow him to change and a kid gets hurt because he shouldn't be exhausted or what have you. But I think the rules at midget should reflect as close as humanly possible as you can to the rules at junior.
I agree 1000%. I look at football to where college football is the feeder to the NFL, and the rules are so much different. Like you make a catch, you only got to have 1 foot in. Like
they don't even play with the same size ball. Like that blows my mind.
The ball's smaller. If you're down, the play's dead. Like, how is that preparing you for the next level? So I couldn't agree more with that. Like that's an important age where you need to, yeah.
That and the whole fierce debate about half shields in junior hockey. When you get up to college, you got to put a cage right back on.
Yeah,
it's
crazy. And I like, to me, it almost doesn't make sense with junior hockey. Like at least like in the U.S., like where you have to be 18 to wear the half shield. Like I feel like everybody should either be in half shields or everybody should be in cages. But like the mix, I feel like I don't know. Like I just feel like a lot of the guys are reckless. Like,
well, I mean,
a lot of the Canadian leagues, it's like I don't even think you're allowed to wear a cage. Like if you're playing in certain Canadian leagues, like everybody wears half shields.
The USHL, I'd say pretty much 95% of the guys wear half shields, whereas I think you see a lot more of a staggered mix as you go down into the the North American League. You see guys with cages and bubbles, and you go down to the NCDC and the EHL, and it's the same kind of. You get a lot more of a mix as you kind of step your way down the junior hockey ladder.
Sure. Yeah. Because to me, like that kind of, I don't know. It just kind of seemed like that sometimes the mix could be bad. You got guys that are overconfident because they're protected, and you got guys, that are reckless because they've never worn a half shield. They don't understand.
Yeah. They don't know.
Yeah. It's like not even that they're purposely being reckless. They just don't, they just don't understand. They've just never gone through it.
Yep.
But yeah, and I think it'd be nice if youth hockey, at least like you said, to the 18s, maybe the 16s started conforming more to the, to the junior rules. Like I don't understand. Like if like why try to reinvent the wheel? Like and some of those games like just take forever, right? Because like you still ice it on the PK. It's like okay, so we're gonna take the icing. Like I'm still sending it 200 feet. I'm not skating this out.
No, and in a way too, the other thing, that I've found, and, I notice when I watch our games, for example, we've got, and when you watch the games at this level, take the icing away, for example, off the PK, you'll start to get the goalies. I think goalies being able to play the puck and goalies being good at playing the puck is a huge, huge value. It adds basically a sixth defenseman on the ice to your team if your goalie can handle the puck. And, number one, if there's no icing on PKs, or if there is if there's no icing on PKs, it obviously will encourage the goalie to get out, stop the puck, goalie kind of handle the puck. And it can do wonders for your team if your goalie can handle a puck and your goalie can handle it, make a breakout pass and a good pass. Like it does wonders for your team if your goalie can handle a puck.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Justin, why don't you talk a little bit about the differences between, in your eyes, like, somebody who's, worked in both leagues, USHL player versus the NA player, or, even when looking at a younger prospect in AAA and saying like, hey, this guy's going to, this guy's most likely not going to be a USHL guy. It's going to be a good NA guy.
I mean,
right? Like, what are some of those differences for players to start to kind of focus on and pay attention as they're developing and growing up here?
I think kind of the biggest difference between every league is the pace of each league. It just, with each step you take, the pace of the game is quicker. It's, guys have a little more skill and guys are capable of breaking you down a little bit easier at each level. It's, I think from level to level, it's pace. And, the one thing I've always thought is, you take your top 9 guys at the USHL level, your top 9 forwards at the USHL level, they're pretty well established. I think, you take your bottom 3, bottom 6, guys, if you're looking at your 15 forward group, those top 3 guys, top 4 guys on an NA team can probably fit. You can easily play in the USHL and fit there. And kind of as you go down, your top 6, once you get into your bottom 3, bottom 4 NA guys, they're probably interchangeable with, your top 3 or 4 guys at the NCDC level, and kind of go as you go down the rope. Your bottom 3, bottom 4 guys at the NCDC level, they're probably not any better than your top 3 or 4 guys at the EHL level, for example. And it just, for me, the bottom,
Oh, don't say that.
ends
The EHL is tier 2. Don't say that. They're
Well,
the newest tier 2. Nothing changed really, but they're tier 2. Don't say that.
Well, according to USA Hockey, what's the NCDC?
What did you say?
What tier is the NCDC? Nothing. Tier 0.
Oh, I don't know. At least the NCDC is not, well, I guess not all the teams anymore, but I was gonna say at least they're not charging players. At least they're like kind of living by the tier 2 model. Like EHL is just, we're tier 2. But no, all in good fun. But no, I agree with you, right? For anybody out there that is confused by all this shit, because it is confusing, like NCDC is clearly better than the EHL. It's a click above. I mean, you even look at the teams that left the EHL, went to the NCDC, they finished like bottom of the standings, right? Like, and there were good teams in the EHL. You could argue it was their best teams left and went to the NCDC.
And again, it's kind of the same point that I made. Your bottom 3 or 4 NCDC teams aren't really any better than your top 2 or 3 EHL teams.
Yeah.
You look at some of those teams that are, the Avalanche.
Yeah, whole new meaning to interchangeable, right? The bottom teams are interchangeable. Hey, they were in the EHL.
Yeah, and but no, I mean, to that point,
you're right. Yeah, I agree.
Those top 3 or 4 teams in each league are going to be able to, are potentially able to compete at the bottom level of the league above it. Like, you got the Avalanche, 87s, you got teams like that can easily compete with those teams that are sitting teetering on the bottom of the NCDC. I think there is a significant difference in level between the NCDC and the NA, and then there's a significant difference in level between the NA and the USHL.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I think once you get down below tier 2, it's very, your bottom and tops are interchangeable.
Yeah, like you're saying, like in terms of, clarify that.
Once you get below the tier 2 level, your bottom and top teams are your bottom teams are interchangeable with the top teams of the league that's quote unquote the next league down.
Oh, sounds like somebody
it's pretty much the whole way up and down.
Sounds like someone proposing a relegation type situation. Relegation promotion.
It would be interesting. It would make teams really account for doing it the right way.
Oh, yeah. If you finished last in the league, you had to go down. Like that's the way it is in Europe. Like, but yeah, no, and then I know we had some fun. Like we're having some fun. But like, I mean, like for everyone at home, like the EHL, like it's a good league. Like they're good at what they do. They're just not tier 2. Like they're a good league. Like I would say, like the EHL is like the most consistent tier 3 league out there. Like they're like the top to bottom, they're the most consistent. Like it's a good league. They move on players. They're just not tier 2, but it's a good league. Why don't you? I don't know if there's a way to really compare, but like, so you guys obviously are scouting from 2 different standpoints, and to kind of put what do you guys see when you look at each other's stuff after all is said and done with the draft, right? Like how, and again, like obviously mistakes are made anywhere in life, right? But for the most part, I'm assuming you guys are, for everybody at home, like I'm assuming you guys are seeing a lot of the same thing, right? So, Serps, when you look at the draft results for the USHL, right? How close is it to what you guys saw all year long? And same thing, Justin, I'm assuming you guys are looking at some of the neutral zone reports. How close is it to what you guys wind up doing in the draft?
I mean, I would say, for us, and that's just to slight the top 300 list or whatever it is, but, I think as soon as you start listening to the people that are outside your office, or outside your group of scouts and coaches, whether that's, whether it's guys that are putting together lists like them, or whether it's some of these fraudulent websites like Puck Preps and some of these other ridiculous websites that I see ridiculous rankings on, the minute you start taking
ridiculousrankings.com,
the minute you start paying attention to that, and then you start looking outside of your inner circle, and what's the thing they said about, like, the minute you start listening to the fans, you're going to be sitting with them.
Yeah.
So you really have to, yes, will I look at the top 300? Sure. Just to kind of get a sense of, the names that are on there, and, is there maybe a name are there guys that maybe we haven't seen that we don't really know about yet? Or are the kind of the guys that we've been watching the right names? That's kind of the extent of what we do with those rankings per se. because you ultimately have to have the right. You have to have conviction on the guys you're going to draft, and you have to believe that they're gonna make it at your level. Because if you don't believe that, then why pick a kid?
Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right. He's looking out for his organization and what his guy needs. Like they may have eyes on one guy, they might watch him 15 times. We might watch a kid 2 or 3 times, right? So it's going to be a little bit different. I will have to brag a tiny bit. Our top 300 09s, I think we had 36, 35 of the top 40 go to NTDP camp or something like that. It was a good number.
That's what I was getting at, because you guys are pretty you guys are pretty good, and you're covering a lot of ground, and obviously like neutral zone's highly regarded by a lot of leagues and programs. Like, so that's kind of what I was getting at. Like,
yeah, I mean, we're incredibly accurate, but obviously teams need to look like they can just take the information and like I said, maybe there's 2 or 3 guys in the top 50 that Justin hasn't seen yet. He might be like, oh, let me go take a look at these guys. But just because we think he's top 50, he might think, hey, we're in the future, we need someone who's going to be quicker, XYZ, whatever. Like, everyone's gonna be looking at different things. We're just trying to present the information that we have and try to put guys in the right places just to help these teams out. And
yeah, well, that's why. Like, and to you, Andrew, the question was more directed like as a whole, right? Like when you see the draft results for the league as a whole, right? Like, you guys can have somebody ranked top 10, right? Even if 5 teams, that's not their need.
Well, and Eric, to that point,
in the top 10, right?
Eric, to the point that I was kind of going to get into too, is just because those 46 kids got invited to the 46 the NTDP tryout camp doesn't necessarily mean we think all those kids are at the top of their class, the top of their position. Well, we have different opinions on guys, and there's guys that we look at and figure, how the heck did they not get invited to this camp? Because we think they're at the upper level of their 09 birth year too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I had one question in particular that I was a little upset about, but it's what it is.
What did you say? Sorry, you froze.
Of course. I said I had one player in particular that didn't go, but it's what it is. But also, like we're putting that list together, it's not just for the USHL. Like, there's kids that are like, if they get drafted OHL, they're gone. Like, they're not going to play in the USHL.
Right.
So like, that's then everything can be skewed in that way for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I know that's going to change now, like where everyone can go and eligibility and all that jazz. But that's something that we put in our decision also.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're at an hour. Any last minute questions, comments, concerns? Put them up now. Yeah.
I had a comment.
Oh, shoot.
Well,
no, put it up.
Go. Okay. I'll be here for a month with the internet. Justin asked about scouting 13 and 14-year-olds in that situation. In 2021, there was a big showcase in Nashville. There was a team that was absolutely loaded. Teddy Stiga, who scored the game winner for Team USA, a couple kids playing at Michigan, and then there was this one kid named Riker Lee who absolutely dominated.
Yeah, he's okay.
He's an average hockey player at best. I don't think he leads your team in points or anything, but like what I'm saying is, so he was 14 years old or something, and there was a kid on his line that dominated just as much as he did. Riker's obviously doing what he's doing in your league. The other kid who had a phenomenal weekend, and like he is playing, I think he's playing low-level junior somewhere. Like, the paths took complete opposites. Like, that kid looked like he was on pace with what Riker Lee was doing, and now, they just branch off because it's just at that age, it's just so much different.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
But I will, to give that kid a little tire pump, it was Riker Lee, Beckett Seneca, who was drafted 3rd overall, and Teddy Stiga all played on the power play together, and I don't think if the other team ever touched the puck when they were 14.
Oh, man. Oh. All right, guys. Yeah, that's gonna be a wrap. Anything you guys want to end with? I'll throw it to you first, Justin.
No, I think, like you said, kind of was just, it was good to kind of give people a little bit of background on, what we're doing and the purpose of everything that's coming this week. Because obviously everybody pays attention to nationals, and everybody wants to see who's going to win. So it's, from our side of it, none of us, we don't care who wins. The score doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's irrelevant. It's more of what you're doing when you get your ice time that matters. It's not. We don't care who wins.
Well, the score matters when, like, if a team's getting blown out, is a team that's getting blown out, is that kid still working his ass off and competing? So I feel like it matters just a tiny bit, but 1,000%, who cares who wins? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. We got one last question. Can Justin comment on the importance of the USHL Phase 2 Combine for other aspects about it? Yeah, Justin, do you want to?
I think it's more so than anything, it's just another opportunity to get on, to be in front of these teams. Obviously, it'll always differ in terms of who teams send there, but obviously every team has to be represented there, and it's just another opportunity to get in front of everybody. A lot of teams have multiple scouts, so for example, this year the Combine's the same weekend as the WSI in Philly, so I'm sure teams will have teams will have guys in Green Bay because they have to, and there will be other teams that will have guys in Philly, for example. So I'll be in Philly, I know. So there's teams will spread their guys out, but it's just more so than anything, it's just an opportunity to be in front of everybody again.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. We will be right back. Actually, Andrew, closing remarks from you. Do you have any?
I did have a slight question for Justin, kind of peek behind the curtain a little bit. So, like, what is your score? What do you guys look like during, let's say the couple days before the draft? Like, do you have your list of X amount of players that you're going to be targeting? Do you guys know who you're going in the first round? If XYZ's take?
Yeah, listen,
you guys, I don't like. How's that? How are those conversations?
I don't like to wait till the last minute. I know, we'll have, like I mentioned, we'll have that WSI in Philly. So, I'm flying out Sunday night, so there's not a lot of turnaround time. We'll get to where we need to, we'll get settled in that night, and then we'll head over to our little draft room in the morning, and then we start to, that's when we'll have some serious discussions if we have to. But yeah, I mean, like I said, we've had, I do a nice little board early in the year to kind of see where we're at. Then I usually update one, from about, once we head into playoffs, then we'll be able to kind of put our final one together once nationals are over, and we'll be pretty prepared. I think by that weekend, I don't want to leave anything to chance where we're arguing over guys on Sunday, on Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, guys, thank you very much for doing this. Justin, great to have you back on. Andrew, great to have you back on. I know you've been on a few times as of late, Andrew, and we still got to get you on for that big game that Justin was asking about before against RC.
RC does. He's just changing up rules and getting nervous.
Yeah, we'll have to get that. We'll have to get that going. Everybody, check. We'll probably start making more announcements about that in the Discord. If you're not in the Swan Hockey Discord, feel free to join it. It's completely free. You could join it right from swanhockey.com. Probably easier to join it from the Web 2 side of the site, but yeah, join it. And if you do join it, once you're in the Discord, and a lot of people have had trouble with this, you have to verify yourself. It's super simple. People just don't realize you have to do it. There will be on the left-hand side, it'll say verify yourself. Just click that, and then you're gonna have to do like a quick little recaptcha thing, like to prove you're not a robot or whatnot, and then you'll be able to access the server. So super simple. Just a lot of people, a lot of people, they don't realize they have to verify, but it's literally a 10-second process to verify. So yeah, hop into Discord if you're not part of it already. Completely free. It's our community chat. It's the center for all the web, for the new Web3 experience for Swan Hockey Digital. We have the brand new rewards program coming out shortly here. I'm very, very excited about it. Yeah, that's gonna be it. We will be right back here this Thursday night for episode 50. We will be at episode 50 already. So yeah, we'll be back here this Thursday night for episode 50. So I will see everybody then. Everyone have a great night. Justin, Andrew, have a great night. Thanks again for doing this.
So yeah, hey Justin, good luck in that. Good luck in playoffs, and have fun in nationals coming up.
Yep. Be a busy week.
Good luck, Justin.
Full week out there.
Yeah, good luck with your big weekend of scouting, Andrew. How many reports are you at now?
Uh,
Since August.
1, since August, 1,996.
Oh, this is a big weekend.
So someone's gonna crack number 2,000. I'm
It's
excited.
it's a big weekend. All right, everybody, have a great night.